This video is brought to you by Ground News. Trump has always had a funny attitude to the national debt. On the one hand, he talks about it quite a lot. During the election campaign, for instance, he suggested using some combination of tariff revenues, Doge, and even maybe a Bitcoin reserve to finally balance America's books. And he spent much of the past decade or so criticizing Democrats for borrowing too much. On the other hand, however, his actual policies generally exacerbate the problem. The deficit expanded every year of Trump's first term, and the one big beautiful bill that Trump is currently trying to force through Congress would add at least $3 trillion to the national debt over 3 years and push the deficit to 7% of GDP by next year, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Normally, Trump gets away with it, and he successfully cowed House Republicans into voting it through last month. However, earlier this week, Trump's former right-hand man, Elon Musk, came out in furious opposition to the bill, describing it as a disgusting abomination and sparking a wave of further criticism from Senate Republicans. So in this video, we're going to look at the one big beautiful bill, how it split the Republican Party and MAGA more generally, and how this escalating civil war might end. If you're interested in the political alliances and groupings that shape our world, then you might enjoy our poster, Every Alliance Explained. It shows, in slightly confusing detail, all of the world's major alliances and how different countries link together. Check out the poster as well as the video which explains it by clicking the link in the description. So let's start with Trump's one big beautiful bill, a 1,000+ page megabill crammed with essentially all of Trump's campaign pledges. This is an idea Trump first came up with in January, when he suggested that Congress should just pass one massive bill rather than multiple discrete bills focused on individual policy areas, presumably because he thought that this would make congressional Republicans less likely to vote against it, even if they were opposed to specific parts of it, and because it would allow him to sneak some more controversial provisions in unnoticed. However, while there are indeed some sneaky provisions, which we'll come back onto later, the most controversial element of the BBB, as it's since become known, is its fiscal impact. The US is already running a massive deficit, amounting to about $2 trillion a year, or about 6% of GDP. But according to the non-partisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the BBB would add $3.1 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years, and $5.1 trillion if the nominally temporary tax cuts, like the no tax on tips and overtime, are extended. This seems pretty likely, given that's exactly what happened with Trump's 2017 tax cuts. Some of these were due to expire in 2025, but the BBB would now make these cuts permanent and introduce an array of new tax cuts that are due to expire in 2028, not coincidentally, exactly when Trump is due to leave office. To facilitate further debt issuance, the BBB also includes a provision that would raise the debt ceiling by a further $5 trillion. So you get the idea. The BBB would put yet more pressure on America's ever-growing debt burden, which currently stands at about 128% of GDP. And this has also provoked a fair bit of upset from Trump's nominal right-hand man, Elon Musk. Last week, Musk gave an interview with CBS where he said he was, quote, disappointed in the BBB, and claimed that a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. This was then followed by a suspiciously chummy farewell party for Musk in the Oval Office on Saturday. But earlier this week, Musk blew up, taking to X to dismiss the BBB as a disgusting abomination, and claimed that America was on the cusp of, quote, debt slavery. A whole load of congressional Republicans then lined up behind Musk to express their concerns about the BBB's fiscal implications. House Representative Thomas Massie, one of just 2 Republicans to vote against the BBB in the House last month, quoted Musk's post just saying, "He's right." And Senator Rand Paul, another outspoken critic, posted, "I agree with Elon," claiming that at least 4 other Republican senators, which would be enough to block the bill, felt the same way. This was only a few hours after Trump had taken to Truth Social to claim that Paul had very little understanding of the BBB, and that his ideas were, quote, actually crazy, losers. Paul was then followed by a second Republican senator, Mike Lee, who quoted Musk on X and added, "Federal spending has become excessive." Lee was then joined by a third in Ron Johnson, who told NewsNation that Musk was, quote, telling the truth, before a fourth, Senator Shelley Moore Capito, told CNN there was, quote, a lot of concern about the BBB among her constituents. Musk's outburst has also apparently encouraged congressional Republicans to air their complaints about other elements of the bill, aside from the fiscal implications. Despite voting for the bill last month, on Tuesday, Marjorie Taylor Greene took to X to announce she was adamantly opposed to a provision in the bill that would strip states of the right to regulate AI. Majority Leader John Thune also announced that Senate Republicans would be examining the more controversial provisions in the bill, including Section 899, which would allow the president to increase tax rates on individuals and companies from countries whose tax policies the US deems discriminatory. In a sense, this is the inevitable outcome of Trump's cake-and-eat-it politics, which involved promising tax cuts for everyone without sufficient spending cuts to match. Maybe he would have got away with it in a more favourable fiscal environment, but with the bond yields way up, the Federal Reserve stubbornly holding rates and various recession indicators flashing, Republicans are getting anxious. So what happens next? Well, maybe Trump will be about to whip the GOP back into line, or come up with some politically convenient fudge. But if he can't, it's not easy to see where he'll find cuts, given he's explicitly said he'll protect Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. A lot will depend on the economic data that's due to be published in the coming weeks. If it looks good, Republicans will probably calm down, but if it looks bad and the recession risk increases, Republicans will only get more anxious. As a final thing, of course, Musk is sort of right. America will struggle to afford another $3 or $4 trillion of debt. But in claiming that Doge would be able to painlessly cut trillions off the federal budget just by focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse, despite everyone in Washington telling him this wasn't possible, Musk both massively oversold Doge and perpetuated the idea that the deficit was something that could be solved without any real compromises. And in a sense, this is the real problem for the US. The budget could be balanced. America could just raise its tax burden to the OECD average. But American politicians have spent so long claiming that the budget can be magically balanced without any pain that the electorate has become both numb to the problem and unwilling to tolerate the necessary tax rises or spending cuts. In this sense, the problem has become political, not fiscal. If you want to know more about this topic, there's plenty of other outlets reporting about it online. Unfortunately though, it's sometimes hard to tell exactly which way these outlets lean politically, making it difficult to understand exactly how your view of world events is being biased by the sources you're reading. That's where this week's sponsor, Ground News, comes in. Their website and app, developed by a former NASA engineer, allows us to pull back the curtain on media bias and have a look at exactly how each story is being covered. For instance, this story about Musk's falling out with Trump has been covered by more than 163 sources. We know that more than 33 of these have been reported by the left, and 25 of these have been reported by the right. That's not all though. Ground News has tons of genuinely useful features. Take their blind spots feed, for instance. This shows you the stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum or the other. For example, if you lean left, you probably missed this story on Chuck Schumer renaming the Trump megabill the Well, We're All Going to Die Act. Here at TLDR News, we think that Ground News is an incredibly useful tool for our current media landscape, one that's constantly trying to attract your attention and sway you towards or away from certain political viewpoints. So having a tool that helps you spot this and helps you take action really is a game changer. If you're interested in everything Ground News has to offer, you can get 40% off the Unlimited Access Vantage Plan subscription by using the link in the description or scanning the QR code on screen. This limited time offer is only available here, so make sure you go to ground.news/TLDR or click the link in the description to get started and support an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.